Welcome to the third episode of Unity DAO, a set of episodes that go into my life. My name is Unity DAO from Botswana, and the last two episodes were about the jobs I quit and or assignments I declined. The second one was about the books I wrote. This one is about the law I practiced, the cases I mounted. People, I love the law. I just want to thank that teacher who guided me into this profession, because she got into my passion. I didn't know it at the time. I love the law, like I said. But I also believe that the law is there to create harmony, to create peace. And when a law does not have that, outcome, it's a bad law. So, when the law said my children could not be Botswana citizens, I sued the government and won. When the law said by practice the minimum sentence for a rape case is 3 years, that was in 1996, 1997, that was the standard. The law said the sentence for rape minimum was life, but for judges, for magistrates, life meant 3 years and often a portion of that suspended. When the law said that, I bussed women from Muchudi to go and watch a case in Mulepolole where somebody was being tried for molesting, for raping an under 10-year-old. By our presence, for the first time ever, that particular individual got 10 years. So when the law said one thing, I decided to act to challenge it, because I did not believe that the outcome was what should be. When the law said my 14-year-old client in Muchudi, who was a deaf mute, could not get justice because she could not speak, because the system is designed for people who give evidence orally, I found a way to make sure that she gave her evidence. And not only that, when a superintendent at Princess Marina Hospital refused to terminate that particular pregnancy because he was Catholic, I respect his religion, but the law said her own religion also, whatever it was, if it allowed her to wanted to terminate that pregnancy, she should. I sued the government, and the Princess Marina was ordered to terminate that pregnancy. When the law said 40 pula per month was all a man should pay, all a man should pay if they have a child out of marriage. Otherwise, the balance of the responsibility should be borne by the mother. I said, no, 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 no. I sued the government and challenged that particular law. The result was that a new law was actually passed by a parliament. Here were the circumstances. At the time, I was running the Women's Information Center in Muchudi, and I was getting all these women coming for child maintenance, 40 pula, 40 pula, 40 pula. And the law said, 40 pula is the equivalent of now, it's less than, it's about $2, maybe $2.50 a month. And the law also said, if the mother does not go to court before 2 years, if a mother does not sue for maintenance for 2 years, within 2 years, she actually could not sue for maintenance at all. And the result was that many men were supporting until the 2-year mark, and then they would stop. There's no reason to sue somebody who's actually supporting. So the result was that after 2 years, if he stops, that's the end of maintenance. The law also at the time said that maintenance would only continue until 13. At 13, it stopped. Unless the child was in school, in which case it continued until 16. So even a 17-year-old was not supported, an 18-year-old was supported. So again, I thought this was unfair, because what it was doing, it was placing an unfair burden on women for child maintenance. And I still say it even today, that one of the biggest problems for women is really an unfair burden for child support, even though the law changed. But let me go back to that particular law. When that happened, I sued the government, said that it's unconstitutional. It was discriminative on two grounds. First of all, it was discriminating against children born out of wedlock, because they were saying a child out of wedlock entitled to the same maintenance from their father as a child born in marriage. Again, it was discriminating against women on the basis of their marital status, because we were saying if you're a mother of a child and you are married to the father of the child, then it's okay. You are entitled to full support. But if you are the mother of a child and you are not married to the man, then it's your indab. You have to support the child on your own. So I challenge that. And when the law said, for example, that LGBTQ plus community could not organize, that they could not organize because they're organized around an illegality, again, I argued that case, supported that particular grouping and sued the government. And the result was they were allowed to organize and therefore be able to form organizations, registered organizations, and organize legally and freely. Again, my argument, was that the right to think, the right to organize, the right of expression, the right to associate is a right under our Constitution, and therefore should not be limited on the basis of sexual orientation. When the law looked the other way, when my client was beaten at school and permanently injured, we said that cannot be. Schools are supposed to be safe communities, safe spaces, and therefore if a child is injured at school, who is responsible has to be the main parent there, that is the government, who is actually in charge of that particular establishment. So at the end of the day, I love the law. And I do believe that used properly, used strategically, used with strategically, you can attain results that don't seem to be obvious from reading the law. I'll give you another example. Again, when I was working at Metlaiti Information Center, I had many women who'd come to the center. They want to leave the homestead. It's unsafe. But they don't want to divorce because divorce is expensive. Financial, it's expensive time-wise, it's expensive emotionally. They are not in an emotional state, financial state, even the time sometimes to devote to this enterprise. Because to get married, hey, it costs 4 pula. To get divorced, it costs a lot of money. To get married, the whole village comes to watch you. To get married, to get out, you are alone. So it's not an easy enterprise. It's not an easy thing to get out of a marriage. Everybody's clapping, so amazing, everybody's so happy. The day you are unhappy, because unfortunately, in our culture, I often say, that we love marriage more than we love the individuals in it. So you've got, James and Jane. You love Jane before marriage, you love James before marriage. Once they get married, you love the marriage more than you love Jane and James. When they want to get out, you don't want, because the marriage is so important to you as their mother, as their father, as their cousin, that even if the marriage kills them, you still say stay in there, because suddenly it assumes a new entity. It's a superior being to the individuals. So when you get out, you are alone. It's expensive. It's emotional. So I would say so my client will say, all I want is to get out until I can have enough money to do that, until I can have emotional stability to do this. And I'll say, okay, no problem. Nobody's forcing you to divorce. There's nobody wearing a timepiece saying you divorce on this day. So what we're going to do is this. You are entitled to have that estate. You're entitled to use it and enjoy it. But he has it because the law will not divide it until you are divorced. So I said, okay, we're not asking for you to divide. We want access and use. So I'll write to the local police station, to the station master, and say, look, my clients will be coming to collect, will be going to house number so and so to collect, have the property there so they can set up their own home. Because this man, is abusing her. She's reported to a station 2 or 3 times before. She's afraid she's going to beat her again, maybe even kill her. So you are going to be there at this particular hour to oversee that there's peace. Your job is to make sure there's peace. That's one of the critical one thing that police is supposed to do, is to maintain the peace and order. So be there so that you can maintain peace and order as we actually carry half the chairs, have the curtains. We'll leave my stove and take the fridge. Or we'll leave. So at the end of the day, we want to have the assets there so that she can go and establish an independent home away from him. At first, but the police will be there because they know if they are not there, then there might be bloodshed, and who's going to be blamed? Them. So that for me, it was one of the strategies we employed. Another one was a very simple one, which actually I talked about earlier this year in Parliament. It's a very simple procedure, and I don't understand why people don't understand how useful it is. The CPNE says, if you believe anybody is going to be violent towards you, is threatening violence, or the same words that suggest they're going to be violent, whether in private or in public, you have the right to approach a magistrate. I mean, this is an old law. It's quite possible when it was formulated in England, magistrates were like neighborhood, courts, so it's very easy, like kind of thing. So, but you have a right to walk into a magistrate court and actually report that so-and-so is threatening violence towards me. I'm afraid that if you don't issue a peace order to bind him to peace, to keep the peace, or bind her to keep the peace, they're going to hurt me, or they're going to harm me. And the court is obligated in terms of those procedures, without reference to any police officer, whatever, to issue a warrant for the arrest of that person, for them to be brought to the court, so they can be asked, is it correct? They say a likelihood they're going to harm them. And then upon hearing the other person, then they will issue what they call a peace order. They will say, go home and keep the peace, or go your separate, but keep the peace. If you so much as threaten or harm this person, if you breach the terms of this order, we are going to arrest you and put you in jail. So it was really a way of stopping violence before it happens. It doesn't mean everybody who's got a peace order is going to stop, but often people, because if it's a working man, for example, a working woman or a working person, they don't want to lose their job. And they don't want this thing to come out. That particular hearing, was not, the police were not involved. They were involved when they came to arrest, but it wasn't like a big criminal case. So as a result, if people want to keep this a secret that they were actually abusive, they are more likely to keep the peace. So it's a very simple procedure. It works if you have a magistrate court in your neighborhood. It works. You can, it's fairly time, it's not time consuming. It's not that expensive. It's available. So I used it a lot before the passage of the Domestic Violence Act, which, again, I was just saying, I was part of the many people, the many activists who influenced its coming about, because the lessons from Metaisi, the lessons from the other organizations that were doing work in this area informed or influenced that particular law. So, what am I saying? I'm saying I love the law. I've used the law to secure outcomes that people did not believe were possible. If I go back, for example, to the Citizenship Act, it was, for me, I guess, it was the first step, and that opened my eyes about how we can use the courts, how we can use the law as a tool for social change, a tool for legal change, a tool for even, I would say, customary, traditional change, people to change their views about things. The Citizenship Act, or the Citizenship Law, as many of you know, or you should know, involved the issue of the right of nationality of children born to mothers married to non-citizens of this country. So in 1996, when I first, launched this particular case, I think it was 1996, yes, because the 1996 I think was the final decision. The case started before that. The law in Botswana was that if you are a woman married to a non-citizen, your children did not become Botswana citizens. The assumption was that women had that domiciled in the country of their husband's countries, their intentions to go back to go to those countries, even if they've never seen those countries. And therefore, when my children were born, at the time they were born, the law said that they were not Botswana citizens. I didn't think that was fair, because I could see men, marrying Tanzanians, marrying Zimbabweans, marrying Basotho, marrying whatever, other countries, and their children were Botswana citizens. I said, like, why is it that men are more important than I am? What have they done, contributed to this country more than I have done, so that they are entitled to more? I mean, we already have problems that only them can be chiefs, only them can be this, only them can sit on chairs. I mean, there's so many issues. And even on this one, you're going to tell me that my children, because I am a woman, are not entitled to Botswana citizens. I didn't think it was fair. I sued the government, and challenged the Citizenship Act, and it was a 5-year drama. A 5-year drama, you know, of every day people say, oh my God, this woman is totally doesn't know what the Bible says. The Bible says women were made out of a rib from a man. So clearly, I mean, if you're only a rib, obvious, it's obvious that how can a rib have more rights than, you know, the odor of the rib? You know, I mean, this argument is still made today. It's really shocking, and therefore they have, you know, less rights. Oh, remember Eve. You know, Eve enticed Adam and made, I don't know, I mean, Adam is so stupid that God tells him to do something, he's listening to somebody else and they're blaming the woman. They don't blame the person who actually broke the law. We've been framed from the start. You know, even Eve herself was framed. I mean, like, how do you blame her for not taking instructions? It's ridiculous. But even people are still saying, Eve was so bad, she listened to the snake, and then this, you know, and then he told Adam, let's eat it. And Adam was so stupid that, you know, he forgot that God had, you know, had instructed him to. I mean, what nonsense is that? So that was the argument. If you look back to the paper cuttings or into the archives, you'll be shocked at what people were saying. It was, I remember, you know, when, first of all, we argued the case, we won at the High Court, the government appealed the case to the Court of Appeal, they lost, they came back, they thought, okay, the best thing is now to actually amend the Constitution to make it very clear that women are not equal to men. You know, so they went from kotla to kotla. I still remember my kotla in Mushudi. Oh, they were the most hostile. Some kotlas were fairly, they didn't know me, they didn't, you know, but oh, that one was hostile. That woman must go back to her own country. What's her problem? When she got married, it means that she doesn't belong to this country anymore. All kinds of things. Men, you know, children belong to women, to belong to their father, not to the mothers. What is this? On and on and on and on and on. And but, you know, because I had many supporters as well, some local, many local, but also international. So we started actually a letter writing campaign, an international letter writing campaign to the Attorney General. To actually, people were writing, school children were writing from all over the world to the Attorney General, basically urging the Attorney General, Sikeleman at the time, to comply with the Court of Appeal decision. So you could actually clog the system, because if you write to the Attorney General, when they couldn't collect mail, there's all this mail. Half the mail is unity mail, half the mail is really the mail that they want to read, but they have to open all of them first, because you don't know which, if you don't open the mail, it may be the one letter you need from another country or whatever. So that's one of the things we did, was to clog the system really with letters from around, from Australia, from the US, from the UK, from all over the world, saying, comply with the Dow decision, comply with the Dow decision. So that also bent the government somewhat. Another thing is that because, I mean, let me share this because it's also very interesting. At the end, after the Court of Appeal decision, I mean, you get tired, you are tired, you're exhausted, you want a break. So I took a trip to the US with my husband, my then husband, and my children. And so, of course, we leave the country. They didn't have Botswana passports. They had only American passports because the government would not give them Botswana passports. So we left with American passports to go to the US. When we come back, my husband then had a residence permit and a student permit to study at UB doing his master's. So he had a residence permit, so he could come through the border. I had a Botswana passport, I could come through the border. And the two children who did not have Botswana passports, at the border they said, okay, where's your residence permit? Or they said I should apply for them for 90 days. I said, I'm not applying for anybody. My kids are Botswana citizens, so I'm not applying for anything. So if you think they're American citizens, you can deport them, you can put them back. So I just walked through past the counter and left the children there. And they said, mommy, mommy, mommy. And they said, madam, you can't leave your children. Well, I said, well, I'm coming to my country. You can send them to their country if you think that makes sense. So then there was really a deadlock, because I left the kids there, and my husband was trying to say, no, don't interfere. You have your papers to come into the country. Just go through. Let the government deal with these two people that they say are not Botswana citizens. So they called the Attorney General. Unity is leaving her children at the counter. She says she's refusing to fill out the form that says they are. Because for me to fill out that form, I would be acknowledging that they are not Botswana citizens. But the court said they are Botswana citizens. So I'm not filling out this form at all. I'm not filling them. So I left them. So then they called the Attorney General. So she's refusing to, to fill in the forms, and they said, just give her just stamp dates on the American passport and let them go, even though she has not, filled the passport. So we came in, and then the other things that we did also, we organized with other women in my situation, and we went to the immigration and applied for passports. All of us, because the law said our kids were Botswana citizens. Apply for passports, and the passport then took maybe a week or 2 weeks to be issued. So after 2 weeks, we come for our passports, and everybody's like scrambling. Other people who were with that day were getting a passport, and then they said they couldn't find the book where we had registered. They couldn't find our forms. I said the whole. And then when I looked at the book, I could not believe it. Somebody had ripped out the page. Because when you came in, you actually write, there was a list of when you applied the passport and a date. They ripped out the page, because when I said, look, pretend we don't see your forms. There were more than 10 of us. All 10 forms are lost. I mean, really, can't we be just honest to say, like, maybe, you've been instructed not to give us passports? But, I mean, that went on and on. But finally, the government decided, okay, no, this is not going to work. So one day, Parliament filed into Parliament and passed a law to comply with the decision of the Court of Appeal. People, it was a long episode, many issues, but the message is very clear. Where there's a will, there's a way. And the law is an important tool of social change. And while the law will not give you everything, it provides a framework within which you can get something. And once again, I want to thank that teacher who guided me into this direction. I'm sure you don't even remember. And I also want to thank everybody, who has been part of the journey. Nobody takes a journey alone. Nobody. So from the start, the citizenship case, there were people there, some women in my position, who then, because of, for all kinds of reasons, could not be litigants. They had wanted to join, but later decided to step back because, when you do this kind of work, there can be personal repercussions. So not everybody has the family support or the strength or the stupidity to continue doing this kind of thing. The maintenance case, the case Moremi against Soto was the case that actually decided a particular issue. I want to thank them for coming forward and being the standard bearers to make sure that the child maintenance law would be changed because that's a biggie. That's a biggie, if you think about it. In fact, even today, at the Guardian Fund, at the High Court, in the Masters, the Guardian Fund, there's still money from maintenance orders of more than 30 years ago that have not been collected because 40 pula was so small that if you're getting 40 pula in Maung Magistrates Court and you're coming from Seronga, or you are 40 pula from the Magistrates Court in Muchudi and you come from Matudu Gwani, you are not going to come and collect it. So the court will give you 40 pula order, but you don't even have the 40 pula to go and collect the 40 pula. So the result is that you don't even collect the 40 pula. And those 40 pula are still there, even today, until and unless the Minister of Finance decide what to do with this money. It is still there. Women, orders of more than 40 years ago, still there because nobody was, the 40 pula, you go home. You can't, it doesn't make sense. So I want to, and all you women who worked in Metlaizile, I know you know who you are. You know the work you did. Where I remember one of you, if you are listening, a man came here once and gave you a slap on the face because you had actually just listened to his wife. You remember that? And that sad case of the man who went to Tlokeng after telling us he's going to kill his wife. We called the police. And then he went there and actually raped and killed his wife's daughter. We failed you. We didn't act, in time. The police didn't act in time. There are those cases as well that will always haunt us. You, the traditional doctor who came to us after the Hamedzi was killed and tried to tell us who had hired you. We were there. Those files are there. So all you bad people, all you good people, and let's hope that, we don't stop this kind of work because we don't, lose sight of the fact that it all starts with the law. It all starts with rules. They will not collect, the laws will not give you everything, but they give you a framework, a path to some sort of peace, some sort of justice. We cannot do it all in one day, but let's not stop. But with that, let me stop here and say thank you very much for listening. This was episode 3 of Unity DAO. I will see you next week. We will have a new topic to talk about. Thank you once again.